Hey, welcome. It's another Masterclass Monday with the Master Herbalist. My name is Sarah Betsani. I am a former chemical engineer turned health nut turned Master Herbalist and homesteader, mom of 3 going on 4. And I am here to teach you how to be well and have your best pregnancy and postpartum ever. So we have done a series of these master classes. We started all the way with if you have moderate to severe reproductive dysfunction, through just generally preparing for pregnancy and enhancing your fertility, as well as first trimester concerns, most notably miscarriage. And today we are just focusing on nutrition for all trimesters. So tell me if you are watching the replay. Please comment #replay. For those of you who are watching this later on YouTube, I am live in the Herb Powered Pregnancy Facebook group, and I invite you to come join us there. The link is below in the description. And I want to help you. I want to help teach you. So I am not a medical professional, and I don't want to pretend to be one. I do not diagnose, prescribe, or treat disease. I simply teach herbs and wholesome foods and other natural modalities such as biohacks and hydrotherapy and circadian rhythm and all this good stuff, nervous system regulation. And I am 7 months pregnant, and sometimes my brain turns off in the middle of a sentence. So it's fabulous. Okay. Anyways, and so I cover those topics. And so one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, I haven't studied every other herbal school out there, but Dr. Christopher's School of Natural Healing, his Master Herbalist program, the way that you get all the way to that master's in herbology, getting certified in that, at least half of the course is nutrition. So I'm not just talking about herbs. It's the whole picture. And I, if you've hung out with me for any amount of time, you will have heard me say things like, you can't out supplement a bad diet. You can't out supplement a too stressful or toxic lifestyle. Whether that supplement is an herb or some other thing, they help. They do help. But if that's the only thing you're doing is just throwing a new pill at it, you're probably not going to get the results that you are looking for, at least long term. And so I want to help you get the whole picture figured out, because we can do it. Okay, so nutrition for all trimesters. So let's start with the herbs first. Did you know that herbs can be part of your nutrition plan? I think a lot of people think of herbs as, well, I have this problem and this herb solves it. That is more of an atomist mentality, which we talked about in a previous masterclass. I also have a free video. If you go to everydayandexperiment.com, it's linked below on YouTube. I'll link it again for my friends in the Facebook group. As well as when you join the Facebook group, if you gave me your email, I did sign you up for that. You should have gotten an email with a link to a video that I did when I was still in the middle of the program, honestly. Excuse me, talking about what is vitalist herbalism and what's the difference between vitalism and atomism. So again, when we use herbs as just a pill for every ill, that isn't really, that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from, we can use the herbs before we even become ill. And we can use them as a vital part of our nutrition plan. These plants are highly concentrated in pretty much everything we need to be well. And that's the beautiful thing. Now, if you only ate herbs for the rest of your life, yeah, you'd probably be a little hungry, but they don't provide bulk, but they are concentrated in those nutrients. So let's talk about the big three. Again, if you've hung out with me for any amount of time, hey, Mandy, welcome. Then you will have heard me talk about my big three that I put in any nutritional herbal combination for tea. And if you're not having this in a tea, find another way to get it. So it is red raspberry leaf. That's number one, especially for women in their childbearing year. If you can only do one, do red raspberry leaf. The second is alfalfa, which again, we've talked about throughout this series. So if you want to learn more about why I'm recommending that, go back through this series. Even if you don't have reproductive dysfunction, even if you have no issues with fertility, just go through this series so that you get that introduction of why I'm recommending these herbs. Okay. And the third one is nettles, stinging nettles specifically, Urtica dioica. So that may sound scary if you haven't taken nettles in any form before, right? Stinging nettles, sometimes people fall in a patch of it or brush by it and they feel strong sensations of pain if that covers a lot of their skin. But when it is dried or cooked, those little hairs that cause that temporary irritation, they actually fall off and deactivate, as well as like the chemical component of it. So those three herbs are so important for providing nutrition, for especially for providing a bioavailable form of iron, very important for women in their pregnant years. But I do not recommend taking iron supplements. I recommend getting it from your food, because there have been cases where people are taking iron, but it's not in this form that their body knows what to do with it. And so they end up overdosing on the iron, or they're not getting any benefit from the iron because they're just not processing it right. And we can, if you in particular had an issue with low iron or low iron uptake or utilization, there are specific herbs that actually help your body absorb the iron better. But again, it's not going to make your body take in more than it needs because it's in the form of a wholesome herb, and our bodies are incredibly designed to intelligently interact with those herbs in that form. And specifically, yellow dock would be one of those herbs. And so on my website, herbalembrace.com, I do drop ship all the full line of Dr. Christopher herbal supplements and herbal remedies, and his yellow dock combination can be very, very helpful for that. Anyways, okay, so we talked about those three. So highly nutritious herbs. What else? As far as what other herbs to include through each trimester, it really depends on what you need. Do you tend to get a little depressed? Do you tend to get a little extra anxious? Do you tend to have digestive struggles? Do you, there's, pick a thing that you're struggling with, high blood pressure. And that's when you figure out what else to add in. And then of course it can just be for flavor. And so in the last masterclass, I did feature the prenatal herbal tea blend that I do make myself and sell. And I will just do a quick little, screen share for those of you who are new. And also there is something new for those of you who are not new. Okay, so this is the tea that I formulated, and you can purchase on my website, herbalembrace.com. And I drink at least a quart a day. I tend to be someone who uses nutrients very, very quickly. I'm a very active person, and it's also just my constitutional type, that I sort of burn through nutrients fast. I'm kind of a high-paced person. I spent a lot of time learning how to slow down and calm down and work through that, but it's still in my nature to burn through those nutrients quickly. And I'm still honestly rebuilding from 34 years of burning nutrients too quickly, and growing up on a standard American diet. So that's fun. Anyway, so I do about a quarter day of this. If you go in here, you can see there's a new option that you can actually subscribe. And if you subscribe to, there's two different sizes here. There's the 1.76 ounce, which if you, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It keeps doing that. Okay. You can see the ingredients here. So down here, it shows you how to judge which size option you would want. And so if you wanted to get, one package of tea delivered to you once a month, you would get the smaller size if you're only planning to drink about 2 cups a day, which is fine. For some people, that may be perfectly adequate. And then I always recommend taking a rest day every 7th day. And that's with any herbal program that I recommend. This was something that Dr. Christopher found was very, very effective at getting the herbs to work that much better, is that you have your 6 days where you're doing your protocols, and then you have your 7th day off. And it just gives the body a chance to reset. And it makes the other 6 days that much better. Like I said, it's more effective. The 5.8 ounce, that is if you wanted enough for about a quart a day, which again is what I have, with 1 rest day per week. So I put that in there so that, anyone can judge how much they want to buy at a time. And again, you don't have to buy this once a month. You could also buy the 5.8 ounce. And if you're only having a cup or 2 a day, that could last you several months. And that may be a great option for you. It is a little bit cheaper per ounce to get the larger size. But anyway, you can subscribe and save the 1.76 ounce size. You can have it selected to deliver every month or every 3 months. And then you get 10% off retail by subscribing versus the 5.8. It is also 10%. Oh, that was it. That was what I did. If you're having it delivered every 3 months, then you're saving 5%. Okay. 5% every 3 months or 10% every month. So I hope that is helpful to somebody. Right now, if you wanted to stock up, if you don't need it delivered every month, but you just want to have a really good supply, I am doing a bulk buy sale across my website on the handmade products. And so any product that is eligible, you can see it down here in the listing. So again, you'll see the title of the listing, the size, select your quantity, one-time purpose or subscribe. And then below the add to cart, you will see what the bulk buy conditions are, what the minimum quantities or dollars spent is for your item. So for example, any purchase of $100 on any herbal teas on herbalembrace.com, you will automatically get 20% off at checkout, but this ends November 15th. So that's just in 2 days. And I don't know when it's coming back. That's what I'm doing right now, before I get really, really deep into kind of holiday sales. So for example, if I wanted to get that discount, then I would need to buy 4 of the 5.8 ounces. That will get me above the $100 mark. I add it to cart. And let me get rid of some other things I had in here. I was testing all my new rules here. So you can see right here that I automatically got that discount, and I can just say, yes, please. And let's go to checkout. So it's, yeah. So what you're getting by buying in bulk is you're getting 20% off. Anyway, so I made it really simple. Okay. So let's stop the share. Okay. So that is on the herbal teas as far as general herbs to nourish your body throughout pregnancy. Now, there are a number of other combinations that I do recommend, especially if you are coming from a background of autoimmunity, constipation, liver struggles, etc. There's a variety of single herbs or Dr. Christopher combinations that I would recommend for a client. But again, it's completely personal. And again, as we've talked through this masterclass, your body's busy when it's pregnant. And so the time to really, really work on healing these things is before you even become pregnant. Now, I'm not saying you have to wait 10 years until you get your body completely, perfectly nourished and cleansed. Like, don't do that to yourself. I caught myself in that just a little bit. I didn't wait 10 years, but I was like, no, I need to do one more thing, to feel totally ready. Not always necessary. But again, if you are dealing with significant issues, it's a lot harder to deal with them and be pregnant because everything is going to be amplified. There's going to be new things coming in. There's going to be things shifting around. So I would really, really like to help you before you get pregnant. Okay, so now let's go to the food. So again, my Master Herbalist program the classes were at least half nutrition. Now, what kind of nutrition were we focusing on? Did we go in depth in every diet out there? No. I kind of did that on my own before I even found this school. Because if any of you have had long-term health problems that just like ruin your life, right? Or just make you feel like I have to find a solution because I want to be functional and I want to have certain things in my life, right? Like I want to be able to have comfortable pregnancies. I want to be able to be strong and I want to have energy and all these things. So I was searching and finding answers. And I tried a few of them out and I listened to tons of podcasts and I read tons of books. And so that's sort of a self-education on the other diets out there. Now, the foods that we were taught about in the program and this is how I've been living since starting the program, or actually a couple months before. I've told a little bit about my story there, but maybe I'll do like a separate video that goes like really in depth. It is called the mucusless diet. And so this is the diet that Dr. Christopher found was the most health promoting long-term and short-term, the most health promoting diet for the many, many, many clients that he worked with and those that he taught. Because we don't want the foods that we're eating to get in the way of our body's elimination processes or to compromise our digestive processes. Because then, first off, our level of health is going to be lower, but also it's not going to allow the herbs to do their job as well either. So what is the mucusless diet? The closest diet out there that has a name right now would be the whole foods plant-based movement. But that still means something different than the mucusless diet. And it still means something different to everyone who is practicing it. So let's talk a little bit about that. The mucusless diet is fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and legumes. You'll notice I didn't mention dairy and I didn't mention meat. Now, how far into that diet you go, as far as do you have any dairy or any meat, is up to you. But he found that people healed the fastest and stayed well the best when they eliminated or drastically minimized those things, the meat and the dairy, even raw, even grass-fed. I've been there. I've been down the Weston A. Price rabbit hole. I lived it for several years. So if you're freaking out, send me a message. And so that mucusless diet, again, this can help people get well. It did help people get well. And also, it kept people well. It's an excellent maintenance diet. When you hear about, this might sound vegan. It's not actually vegan. And we do use honey a lot in the mucusless diet. And again, there could be some leeway for a little fish, a little butter, a little chicken or something, but that's where it really depends on the person, and where if you give the pure form of the mucusless diet a chance and see how you feel and then decide what you want to do, it's an option. Anyway, so I'm going to drink some more tea. So what I always tell my clients is we are emphasizing the fresh fruits and vegetables as much as possible. Now, is this 100% raw? Not necessarily, but it could be. 100% raw diet can be very healing for people, especially if they are having, emergency prognosis of a certain number of months to live type of situation. I'm not going to say which things I'm specifically talking about, but you can imagine, okay? An all raw diet can be very, very healing. It's very detoxifying, okay? So we have the maintenance diet as the mucusless diet. We have the all raw diet as a healing diet. And then we have the super healing, super cleansing diet, which is the fresh juices diet. And again, figuring out where on this spectrum may benefit a person the most to start at, it just depends. Okay. It depends on what's going on with you. It depends on what your commitment level is, what your support level is, what access do you have to these foods. Sometimes even what season of the year is it, right? I'm going to get there. And just what can you handle, right? Because if you jump into something that is too hard and you have no support and it's way out of your budget, and you're spending your entire energy using a slow crank hand juicer, I've done this before, to make your juices all day long, you will get exhausted, and then you're not going to get the benefits of the healing that you could be getting. And so again, that's where we look at the whole picture, what is going to be best for you. Okay, now on the mucusless diet, that is generally like a 50-50 in terms of raw and cooked. But that, again, can be adjusted according to a person's needs. And it can also be according to the season. All right. So in the warmer times of year, we generally have greater access to all of those fresh, raw veggies and fruits. In the winter, it's a little bit different. And also in the summer months, it is good for our blood to thin out a little bit. That's what keeps us cool. That's what enables us to tolerate the heat better. And so the fresh herbs help with that, as well as the fresh fruits and vegetables, whether that is just eating them raw, nice and crunchy, or juicing them, or throwing them in a smoothie, making a nice salad, etc. So that's when we can really load up on things. In the winter, though, we don't we can eat seasonally and still eat a fair percentage of a raw diet. So things I've been learning as I've been out on my homestead journey, things like apples and pears, if you get the right variety, they store well. Generally better if you had like an attached garage where things don't freeze in there. They're not going to frost over, but they stay very, very cool. That's a great option. Or if you had, I live in Utah, and a lot of houses now are built with what's called cold storage rooms. And they're just, they're an unheated section of a basement that's closed off from the rest of like the finished basement. Now, if you had an unfinished basement, that would likely work very well also. They could also store fairly well in a regular pantry if there's enough airflow, if it's not like right next to the furnace, but there you go. So what I like to do is I order my apples and pears in bulk from Azure Standard. And I'll put an affiliate link below, that I don't remember, but I believe it gives you a discount and it gives me a little bit of a kickback, which is helpful. So I will get, these big boxes of apples and pears, and I will store them wherever I can. And just every day, it's, have as many apples and pears as you want, kids. Just have at it, crunch into them, keep them raw. Now, is there still some nutrition in, say, a maple syrup based, as opposed to sugar, a maple syrup apple crisp or a pear crisp, or sorry, I was about to say peaches, but that's summertime. That's late summer. There is still some benefit. There's still some fiber. There's still some of the minerals, but those heat sensitive vitamins are getting cooked out and the food is getting transformed. And so I've really noticed myself, as I have learned to eat more and more raw foods, that first off, you save a lot of time, right? Like you don't have to make these really elaborate desserts. You can just eat an apple, but I still do make an apple crisp every once in a while. It's fun. There's also ways to make a raw apple crisp where you're chopping up your apples, you're, sprinkling some fresh lemon juice on that. And then you can make your crumble topping out of some wholesome grains and or nuts, with some honey and cinnamon. Like there's some great ways out there. And I have found that when I have, my fruit primarily raw, and I'm making sure that I'm chewing it and I'm mixing it well in my mouth with my saliva before I swallow, I'm not experiencing blood sugar spikes and drops. I just generally digest it better. It just feels better in my body than when I do indulge in like a baked apple treat or something. So anyway, something to think about. Kind of going into the weeds here. And by the way, as you join me live, please drop a comment so I can see who you are and that you're here. And as I'm talking, if you have specific questions, because we are coming up to question time, if you have specific questions about prenatal nutrition, please comment. Okay, so what else stores well in the winter? Pumpkins and other winter squash. Now, and potatoes and sweet potatoes, carrots, you can even store celery in the right conditions, besides just having it in your fridge. And my perspective has kind of shifted as I've become a farmer. And it's like, okay, when I have a large quantity of these things, how do I preserve them in the lowest effort, maximal nutrition, most natural way? So that's kind of why I might be saying things that sound kind of weird. Like, why would I care about storing 200 pounds of potatoes? Well, if you grew 200 pounds of potatoes, you would need to know how to store them. But if you're able to go to a grocery store every week, then, okay, don't care, fine. And so I do still cook potatoes, and I do cook, my spaghetti squash and my sweet potato, and I generally cook my pumpkin, but I've also juiced pumpkin. And it's generally better with like some juiced raw carrots as well, or some cinnamon or other things. There's a lot of great recipes out there, right? Like this is the fun time that like we live in this age where if I need to find like a raw pumpkin juice recipe, I just type it into Google and I can find like 20 of them. Anyway, there's a lot of great options there. Now, do you have to 1000% perfectly eat seasonally to have a healthy pregnancy? No. But if you like kind of a fun challenge, you can follow what I just suggested there. But generally, it is better for our bodies to eat things that are growing as local to us as possible, as in season as possible. Another one that stores really well, and I have it right here, are pomegranates. So again, these store and you eat them raw. If you have questions about different ways to cut open and enjoy a pomegranate, let me know. I can describe a couple of the ways, but I don't want to take like another 10 minutes on here. But I have a way that I feel is really easy, and other people have other ways they feel is really easy. You can also ask the internet, of course. But anything that is a nice deep color is generally packed with nutrition. Does that mean iceberg and romaine lettuce and celery have no nutrition? Absolutely not. Every color matters. I know there was this big like movement of, oh, we all need to switch to like only kale because iceberg lettuce is nutritionless. No, actually, it has its own benefits. But it is the dark leafies that provide the most chlorophyll and the most folate and etc. And so speaking of folate, pomegranates are also a great source of folate, but generally any fruit or vegetable is a great source of folate, as well as our whole grains and our seeds. So again, that's another one that can store fairly well in a pantry or in a cooler area of the house. What are some other things? So I have shared my recipe for green lemonade in this group before. And that's, for me, that one's really easy to make in the summer when I can just go and get a few comfrey leaves. Yes, I said that. I'm not telling you to eat comfrey, but I'm just saying I put it in my lemonade. And some alfalfa, and I could put fresh nettles in there, and actual fresh raspberry leaves and spinach and chard and kale, the sky's the limit, just any fresh green. And I blend that into my lemonade, which is just water or a tea base, and fresh lemon juice and raw honey. But another option that doesn't require any honey, which is totally not local or seasonal, but I still recommend it, is a pineapple. All right. So this is one of like Dr. Christopher's and the many, many midwives that studied with him. This is like their magical pregnancy drink. It is to juice a whole pineapple and then to blend in all of those fresh greens. And if you're really hardcore, you don't even strain out the fiber. I strain it out because I guess I'm not that hardcore, but also because I want my kids to eat it. But then in the winter months when you don't have access necessarily, I do highly recommend learning how to sprout your own microgreens. So nutritious, and you can do it right inside, and that's local, and it's in season, and it's in season because it's alive and you're growing it in your space. But otherwise you could juice your whole pineapple or blend your whole pineapple, and especially the core that has a ton of the enzymes as well. And then you could add your spirulina, and your Jurassic greens powder is one that I really recommend. I found that the Jurassic greens powder, let me show you. It's different than just, excuse me, than just like any old green powder that you would find out there. Like it's not just dried, it's not just dried alfalfa. So let me show you for a second here. Okay. And I found that this has a fairly neutral flavor. And it's really good. Oranges will be in season in a couple of months. I love getting boxes of fresh oranges from California in like January, February. And if you juice those and add this greens powder to it, it's so good. So here's this Jurassic green powder. And so it talks about its use in the green drink. So this is the green drink that I'm talking about, like adding these things to pineapple juice or orange juice or whatever. So we're packed full of phytonutrients, whole food vitamins, trace minerals, active enzymes, chlorophyll, balanced amino acids, and other important nutrients needed. They promote the alkalinity of the body. And that is the other reason for the emphasis on the fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds and legumes, is that they promote that alkaline state, which is non-disease forming. It's a healing state. So you'll see that it has alfalfa and barley grass and kamut. And then it talks a little bit about, you know, what's the big deal about kamut. And we actually had the, oh, what's his name? Can't remember his name. Okay, so it's the Khorasan wheat. Like that is the wheat that they found in the Egyptian tomb, but its kamut became, you know, the brand name. I think I have that right. I might have it flip-flopped. I apologize. But like the inventor of whichever one is the brand name, again, I think it's kamut. We actually had him out here to our homesteading community. And he walked around my lot and was so encouraging. And we talked about regenerative agriculture, and it was so cool. Anyway, it's an ancient wheat. And so it is the grass, it's the sprout of that kamut, and it's the sprout of the barley, and then it is also the alfalfa. So this is a great one as well. Another herbal combination that I personally use as my prenatal multivitamin is this one. So the vital herbs, you can see there are 3 different kinds. And so I get the powder because then I put it into capsules myself. And on my website, you can order capsules and you can order a capsule machine even. And so I find that because I use so much of it, that is the most cost-effective option for me. Now, if you don't want to make your own capsules, you have this option right here. Those are the Vital Herbs capsules. And if you prefer an extract, by the way, they're 20% off right now. I think only through the end of the month. Yep. So all Dr. Christopher extracts are 20% off on herbalembrace.com right now through the end of November, which we're almost halfway through the month. And so that could be an option as well. If you struggle to swallow capsules, or if your digestion is quite impaired, using the liquid form of anything that you are needing to get into your body would be preferred. Okay, so we're going to stop the share on that. And then I wanted to show you one other thing. I have done little videos on this before. This is Rejuvelac, and you can make this with any grain. and or seed. So in the case of quinoa, it's technically not a grain, it's a seed, but it makes great Rejuvilac as well, that isn't quite as strong as the others. And so I have done videos on this, sharing the recipe before, but basically you fill up your jar a third of the way, and you don't have to make this much at a time, but whatever size you're making, you fill up with a third of the way with your choice of grain. Lots of people just use wheat. It's probably the most cost effective. You could even use kamut. And then you fill the rest of it up with just water. You're not adding any salt. You're not adding any sugar. It's just the grain or seed and the water. And then you let it sit for about 24 hours. You strain that liquid off and you can totally drink it. And then you just add new water to that same batch of grain or seed. So this is actually, I've already strained this once and I added new water yesterday, and you can see it's already bubbly. So this is a fantastic probiotic drink. It is very, very simple to make, very cost effective to make. All right. It's already 250. Ha, okay. So the key as well. So I talked a little bit about raw versus cooked, and what we're going for there. Now, for the whole grains and legumes, the preference for digestibility, for, alkaline promoting and general wellness promoting, it is ideal to soak and or sprout those grains and seeds and nuts and legumes, and then to low heat them. Now you could also just sprout them and eat the sprouts, but what we like to do, for example, which grain do I want to use as an example here? So we like to enjoy buckwheat groats. They're kind of sweet and nutty, and a change of pace from like oatmeal every day. And they work really well for this, but you want to get the kind without the holes on it, or you're not going to want to eat it. Those are the ones with the holes. They'll be black on the outside. And you can sprout them and you can eat the sprouts, and they're super good for you. But if you get the version that has the hole off, they're going to be more of like a gray brown. And so what we do is we have a thermal cooker. It's really just a really big thermos, and with a stainless steel pot that goes inside. And so we put, say, a cup of dry buckwheat, and then you could soak it overnight and then do this. But here's the other thing. As you adjust to eating this way, your gut actually is able to handle that whole phytic acid concern more and more and more and more. But anyway, buckwheat it's not a huge issue for that. So you would put in your dry, and then you would pour in boiled water that's still hot, but not so boiling that you're going to like burn yourself. And then you close the lid, put it in this container that again is like a large thermos, and it's ready in the morning. And it's passively cooking. And when you do that, the food is staying below 130 degrees Fahrenheit and is still technically considered raw. So when you have it at that lower temperature for cooking, as opposed to simmering it on your stovetop, you're preserving a lot more of the nutrients of that food. And when you're preserving more of the nutrients of that food, you don't need to eat as much of it to get full. So that's just one example of the magical power of low heating a grain or a seed. Okay, let's come in. Let me see if you guys have written any questions. How does that one taste? I assume you were asking about this, the Rejuvilac? Tell me which one you were asking about, Mandy. If I were to answer the question about the Rejuvilac, honestly, if you So for me, like if I pour quinoa into a pot before I'm cooking it, I don't always low heat. Sometimes I simmer it. It's okay. Um, but if you're really, really, struggling with your health, the low heating would be the best option. Um, Eat the rainbow. Yes, Sherry. So when I pour quinoa into a bowl and then add water to it, like I can actually smell, there's like a smell to the quinoa. It's not strong, but it's there. And it basically tastes like that smell. It's a little bit sour. It's a little bit bubbly, but generally it's pretty bland. Um, and you don't need very much of it. So I just take little sips. Um, you could throw a little in a smoothie. Lots of people actually make nut or seed-based cheese using Rejuvelac as their like starter culture. So again, that's another really cheap way to create a starter culture or to ferment other things. Oh, the vital herb extract. How does that one taste? Okay, so I have tried using the vital herb extract as the powder. I'm trying to think if I've ever tasted the glycerin one. I think I have. It's not a strong flavor. Generally, the extracts just taste like glycerin. But the vital herbs extract does have cayenne. And so there is a little bit of a cayenne kick there. It's not like 50% cayenne. It's like the last ingredient. So it's just in there as sort of a synergizing stimulant for all the other herbs and because it's good for you. And so there's a little bit of a bite at the end. I've also mixed the powder into warm water when I didn't want to bother with making capsules. And it's okay. Like I can choke it down if I have to, but I don't prefer to. I've also added it to smoothies. And again, because it has that cayenne in there, it's just a little like, it's not my favorite. But it's not like horrible tasting like the lower bowel formula or the complete tissue and bone formula would be if you stirred that into a glass of water or made the syrup. Okay. Sherry says, I gently heat the skin and use it as pineapple tea. Oh, cool. So you wash the skin thoroughly and then gently heat the skin to make pineapple tea. That sounds good. I actually, the last time I juiced a pineapple, I saved the skin and I put it in a jar. I covered it with water and I added some honey to it to make pineapple vinegar. And it seems to be working. So I'm pretty excited because none of the recipes say to use honey. Most people will say, don't use honey for fermentation. It'll happen too slowly. It's not going to work, but mine's working. So, ha. All right, ask me more questions. I'm going to go, while you're typing out your questions, I am going to go back to, there were some questions asked ahead of time in the group. There's one about a specific herbal product that I did answer for that person. It's not one that I necessarily recommend, so I'm not going to go into it here. Okay. Okay, so how do you get to a more raw diet than you're currently at? It depends. So generally, if a person can't digest raw food very well, then we start looking at what is the state of the bowels and the whole digestive system, including the liver, right? And so there may be specific cleanses that can help with that and specific rebuilding routines that can help with that, which I am actually going to talk about for our last couple of minutes after I answer a few more questions. I'm going to come back to this. It's not true. So let's say you heard me talking or you read somewhere or listened to a great podcast. It was like raw fresh fruits and vegetables or all fruitarian or whatever. Like that sounds like what I need to do. I'm going to go raw today, right now. And let's say you have been eating very low raw so far. The current situation of your gut microflora and your enzymatic activity is probably not suited to 100% raw diet all of a sudden. And so you could get very uncomfortable, but there are things that you can do to aid that. So for example, why is the pineapple even in the green drink? Why is it so essential? It's full of enzymes and something called bromelain that gets a lot of good hype for good reason. That's good. But we like it in its wholesome form. I don't want to take a bromelain capsule. I want to eat a pineapple. Also, that's cheaper. And these are really, really great for helping you break down your food. Now, even with that though, some people, if you have too much pineapple juice, you're going to start getting mouth sores. Like it's going to be too much. You have to observe your body. You have to be reasonable. But apple cider vinegar is another really great one. And there are some really great, capsules of plant-based enzymes that you can get as well that can help. But that is just one aspect. It takes time for your gut environment to adjust to what you're eating, but it does happen. So again, sometimes people will get really excited about a certain way of eating and they'll just jump into it and they will feel awful and they will decide that the diet is not for them. Well, you're going to feel awful if you do anything suddenly without complementary procedures such as herbs and foods that help with enzymes, that help adjust your microflora, that help keep your bowels moving or get them moving because they're probably not moving very well for most people, as well as helping your body detox because you're going to start dumping toxins as soon as you add more fresh fruits and vegetables. And it's uncomfortable. Okay. Sometimes we need to go through the hard, but we can make it a little bit easier with things like castor oil compresses, Epsom salt baths, taking those herbs that help with the bowels, taking herbs that help lymphatic flow. But again, it just depends on what's going on with you, what your capabilities are, and how you want to do that. So if you've tried raw food and you've just given up because you're like, I can't digest it, there's hope. There's things you can do. You just didn't have enough tools. And I can give you some. Or you can just do what I said for free and you'll probably see a benefit. Okay. Okay, prevention for gestational diabetes would be honestly everything that I have been talking about in the last few master classes. All right. You get your body clean, you get your body nourished. If you know that you have a weakness in the pancreas area, then perhaps you would spend some time taking herbs that feed the pancreas before you get pregnant, or maybe there's something you need while you're pregnant. The other thing there is, again, what we've talked about in terms of chew your food slower. Mix your food with your saliva. That's where digestion begins. It's in the mouth. You want it to begin in the mouth because then signals get sent down to the rest of your digestive system telling it what is coming and how to prepare. And that's how you end up rebalancing your stomach acid and being able to break down your food better. And it's how you prevent those blood sugar spikes. Dr. Christopher found that even diabetics could do juice cleanses. Juice cleanses. If they spent time swishing that juice around in their mouth, mixing it with the saliva before they swallowed it down. If you chug down juice and you're diabetic, yeah, that would be really bad. Don't do that. And don't tell anyone I told you to do that because I didn't. So there's just a few things there. Okay, and there was a question about protein. So fun. Okay, so there's a book. I still haven't read it yet, but I watched the blurb on it and it sounded quite promising. It sounds like there's a ton of data in there that they've gone and studied. It's called The Protein Myth. And the premise of this book, which Dr. Joel Fuhrman also says, and I know there's other doctors out there as well, and there's other great books, and I haven't read them all. They have stated, based on what they have studied, it's extremely rare to actually be protein deficient. So I don't even recommend to my clients taking a protein powder that's plant-based. I don't recommend any protein powder because these protein powders are a partsome food. We've talked about wholesome versus partsome. And that is difficult for your body to work through. Instead, if we eat a wide variety of the fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes, soaked, sprouted, and low heated, you're getting protein in all of that. There's even protein in lettuce. Okay, it's in everything. But I know it's really, really popular to tell pregnant women that they need to up their protein intake, right? You got to provide the building blocks for the baby. Hey, guess what? Those amino acids are also in all of these other foods. And often, here's the other thing. When we're focusing on the plant kingdom instead of the animal kingdom for our food source, we're getting the literal building blocks. We're getting the precursors. And that's what our body prefers to get. Versus, well, they say, well, this amino acid is only in beef liver, or you can only get your B12, right? That's another fun one. We talked about that. You can only get that in beef, and it's like, well, but actually, you can get all of your amino acids that you actually need, or the precursors to all of the amino acids that you actually need from plants. And you do the work to heal your gut, and it produces everything else you need. Because if we keep giving our body stuff that it should be producing itself, or that it is designed to produce itself, it'll stop producing it itself. And then, yeah, you do need that secondary form. So there's a brief introduction. Okay, so this masterclass was pretty heavy on the me talking on the and there's still so much else that could be said. Another thing, for people who are really worried about protein, and just generally, I have just found this to be really helpful for myself, is the spirulina chlorella. So I've shown you guys the spirulina capsules before, and those are great. If you can handle, I don't sell these on my website, so I'm losing money telling you about this, but oh well. I get this kind. It's in these little tablets because I can hand a few of these to my kids and they'll crunch them up. They like beg for more, which is funny because they don't taste good. They don't taste horrible. It's like, my kids are great. So anyway, so that's what I do because they will take it. You can also get this in a powder form. And that's really easy to add to smoothies. But start low and figure out where your tolerance for the flavor is. I find that this flavor can be more off-putting if you get too much in it than the Jurassic greens. Yeah. Anyway, so what's great about this stuff? We talked about this in a past masterclass, specifically around chlorophyll. And this has a very effective, but still gentle and safe detoxification power in all of the chlorophyll that's in this. But it's also packed full of amino acids and omega acids and good things. It's also packed in protein, but it's packed in protein that is highly digestible. So that's my thing about protein for today. I no longer worry about it. I just don't. Now, Do I eat tofu? Yes, I eat tofu. I get the cleanest, most organic tofu I can get. Someday I want to make my own. I'm not there yet. Um, but I grew up in Japan and China, and I love tofu, and my kids love tofu. And that's a lot easier than soaking a pot of beans and then sprouting it or pressure cooking it. I do pressure cook some of my beans. Um, and that's fine. But I'm not eating a ton of tofu or tofu products because I'm concerned about my protein intake. It's because I like it. It's because it fills out a meal. Does it provide some protein? Yeah. Provides a lot of other good stuff too. All right. So I think I've done the protein thing. There was a question about which herbs are actually unsafe to use during pregnancy. I did go over that a little bit in the last video. So if you want to go back to that one, it was on the it was at the very end of the herbs for miscarriage video. There's a nice little book. It was the pink book, Every Woman's Herbal, that does have 2 pages devoted to here's the herbs you need to watch out for. Now, does it list every single herb in the herbal canon? No. Can every herbalist know about every single herb in the herbal canon? No. I admire the ones who know quite a lot, though. But generally, we want to avoid the herbs that are emmenagogues, which means promoting menstruation. But even that is like some of those in low doses or in combinations with other herbs are actually very good for you while you're pregnant. So I wish it was more black and white for you, but it's not. Love ya. But generally you want to avoid emmenagogue herbs. Pennyroyal, we talked about that. That's the biggest one to avoid until your last 6 weeks of pregnancy. That is in Dr. Christopher's birth prep formula, and it is very good at preparing the uterus for childbirth. But before that, it's one that you generally don't want to use. And like I said, people tried to use it for abortions and some were successful, but I don't even want to get into that right now. But that's a key one to avoid. The other ones to avoid would be strongly cathartic herbs. So herbs that are going to purge your colon, we generally want to avoid while pregnant. This is part of why castor oil has become this like mythological thing for or legendary, I should say, for promoting labor. If someone is like super overdue and they'll drink castor oil, I do not recommend this, by the way, but people do it. And why does it work? It works because it's very cathartic, because it's slightly toxic when you take it internally. And so when you do that, you end up with diarrhea and cramping, and that can trigger labor. So I don't personally want to go into labor because I'm having diarrhea and cramping, but I do know people who have done it because they're super desperate. There's other things I would do first, to be honest. So anyway, the heavy cathartic herbs we don't want to do, but something like Dr. Christopher's lower bowel formula has been used safely by pregnant women for many, 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 many years. Because the herbs in that formula, the strongest one as far as promoting bowel movement is that Cascara sagrada. Some people get really worried about that. But again, it's in combination with other herbs. It's not straight Cascara sagrada. It has these other herbs that create this overall safe and very useful blend. Excuse me. And then we also generally want to avoid anti-parasitic herbs. So a parasite cleanse is one of those like big no-nos during pregnancy. There are many, and most people will say, don't do any cleansing during pregnancy, don't do any cleansing during postpartum, etc. My education on that, my training on that, as well as my personal experience and belief on that is there are ways that you can safely, gently cleanse during pregnancy. But again, it's nicer to do that beforehand. Okay. Like let's keep your load while you're pregnant simple to, you know, keeping your bowels moving and keeping your digestion working and nourishing and nourishing some more. Let's pack the cleanses in beforehand, but there still are some things you can do. But the parasite cleanses are the ones that, like, no, do not do that. And so one of the key herbs there would be wormwood. You wouldn't want to do a wormwood parasite cleanse. But here's the thing. Many women have safely taken Dr. Christopher's complete tissue and bone, or what was formerly named bone, flesh, and cartilage formula, throughout their pregnancies. In fact, his daughter-in-law, Fawn Christopher, she said, yeah, I took 2 capsules 3 times a day during my pregnancy. I would not have survived without it because my body was so broken. Like, and I have also taken it through my pregnancy, not because my body is so broken, but because I am still healing certain things. And I have found it to be very helpful. If I, am moving too many boxes one day, or I lifted something heavier than I should have, or whatever. If I have a sore neck, or, so I found it to be very helpful. And that formula does have wormwood in it, but it's not the #1 ingredient. It's a low percentage, and it's part of a whole package. So again, we look at how are we using the herb, especially if it's in a wholesome form and not a standardized extract or a concentrated extract. But if we're using it in a reasonable, wholesome way, there are safe ways to use even the herbs that are generally recommended against. And the other piece of this is, what's the alternative? If you would otherwise be on psychiatric medication, is that really going to be safer than this other herb over here, which may generally not be recommended during pregnancy? Or if you would otherwise be on this, on a statin drug, is that really safer than cleansing out your body so it doesn't need to produce high amounts of cholesterol? Just things to think about. Okay. Let's see if any other questions have come through here. So I think that covered the ones that were asked ahead of time. If not, ask me again, write in the comments. All right. I'm going long. I'm just too passionate about this. I love you guys. I love you gals. My lovely women and their supportive husbands here. I just love you. Okay. So I wanted to end this call with an opportunity for you. Normally, I showed you ways to work with me, how to sign up, how to get on my schedule in the last masterclass. And I have a new option that I am going to run as being available for just a week. That I'm going to start when I get off this call. I'm going to put a link in here that you can use. This is generally part of my 8-step program that I like to lead people through, that is personalized for their starting health and wellness and their goals as far as nutrition, cleansing, nervous system stuff, whatever else needs to happen. Like I said, there are 8 steps. I should tell you what the 8 steps are, but I'm running out of time. Anyways. And so, when you purchase my 6-week package, we go through the whole thing. And if we need a little longer, because some people will need a little longer, then, we adjust. But I am offering for 1 week only, you can sign up to get just a portion of that with me. And that portion will be the gut reset portion. So I've talked about this before. It is the Candida overgrowth and leaky gut protocol using herbs and plant-based, mostly raw nutrition to heal the gut, rebalance that microflora in 18 days. I've done this myself. I've led many people through it. Let me read to you some of the things that have happened for people. Not everyone notices like a really big sudden change. But people like me, it's like, oh, popcorn used to bother me and now I can have some popcorn. Or they feel a little more energy. Sometimes it takes them a few months afterwards to be like, oh, that thing stopped hurting me and I didn't even notice during the cleanse. But let me pull up some of the times that my clients have done this cleanse and the things that they were noticing here. So one man had chronic neuropathy. He was I actually don't know what decade he's in. But an older gentleman, he did do this protocol and he had chronic neuropathy, and within the first 2 or 3 days of this cleanse, the chronic neuropathy was gone. That's fast. And that's awesome. Again, not everyone gets like something super dramatic. It depends on like what's even going on for you to begin with. And then another woman, she had actually been eating plant-based whole foods for a long time, several years. But she was kind of always gassy and she had a lot of bloating. She wasn't sleeping well and she had really low energy. So, a lot of whole foods, plant-based promoters like to say, well, just go on this diet and it'll heal everything. Well, it may eventually, but the herbs can help us get through that detox period. And also, we all have different ways that our bodies are starting out a little bit compromised. And so we can rebuild those areas and we can rebuild the powers of our digestive system so that we can handle those wholesome foods. So there's just a few. So like I said, I'm going to put a link below. This will be only for 1 week. I will be offering that you can sign up for this program where you can work through with me, discounted from the full program, because we're just going to do 3 appointments where we figure out how to adjust this protocol for your lifestyle and your needs, and then a check-in as you've gotten all your supplies now and you're getting started. And then we do a final wrap up of how did it go? Where do we move on from here? So I'll be posting that. And that's sort of like my Black Friday deal. Love it or hate it. Tis the season for deals, right? Everyone wants a deal right now. So, I will have a limited number of spots for that. And if you have been waiting, I know some people have been saying, well, Sarah, I want to heal my gut, but I don't want to do all the other things, or, do you have a package just for that? Well, for a limited time, I am doing a package just for that. And I hope you will join me. It is the fastest gut healing protocol I have ever seen. I've done several. I've observed others do these protocols where it's like, well, you just can't have certain foods for the rest of your life, or they'll do it for years. And as soon as they go off that diet, they still have all the same problems. And so we aren't actually solving the problem if that's what's happening, right? We want to solve the problem. So are there certain foods that you don't eat during this short 18-day period? Yes. But does that mean that you can never have those foods again? Not necessarily, if we're still talking about wholesome foods and primarily plants. So anyway, if you have questions about that, please reach out to me. I will post a link. And anyone watching the replay or watching this on YouTube, if you have further questions for me about prenatal nutrition, I know this is a huge topic and I just went into a few. a few, even though I feel like I went down like every rabbit hole. Please comment, send me a message. Again, if you're in the Facebook group, you can just direct message me anytime. And then if you are on YouTube and just finding me, please come and join us at the Herb Powered Pregnancy. We'd love to have you in there. You'll have much more direct access to me. And you can also go to the contact page on my website, my coaching website, everydayandexperiment.com, which again, it'll be down below in the description. So thank you for joining me today. And I'll see you around. All right. Be well. Take care. Bye.